I found out my husband had been cheating on me last Valentine's Day when I was 6 months pregnant. He's in the Navy and was in training in FL. I flew out to spend the week with him and he was acting weird. I asked to see his phone and he tried to tell me it wasn't healthy and that his therapist told him that we shouldn't do that. Well, I've never done that to him, but he had admitted to doing it to me, and then tried to accuse me of cheating even though he found absolutely no evidence that I ever cheated. He brought up an old text thread he saw from a guy that I'd met in a bar while out with GFs about 1 week after we made our relationship official, but we still weren't engaged or married. I was confused, because I had no memory of this, and had to dig back in my texts to find what he was talking about. The text exchange was over and done in 1 day, and we never talked again. The content of the exchange consisted of talking about a podcast, my girlfriend's dating woes, and then I mentioned what an amazing boyfriend I had and was thankful not to be having the same problems as my friends. I never cheated on him or even came close. Anyway, fast forward a few months, and here we are in the Airbnb, and I'm asking for the phone. I tell him that he looked at mine behind my back, plus GPS tracking me without my knowledge for months before I found out, and I don't care what the therapist says, I deserve to know the truth. He hands me the phone and then tries to yank it back before I see anything. I take off and lock myself in the bathroom. I start seeing Insta messages, Snapchat messages to other women. He's trying to get in the bathroom the whole time. I'm not that strong and can't continue holding him back, so I put the phone in my pants and open the door. I tell him I don't have the phone and he can look for it in the bathroom. While he's looking, I take off running in the middle of the night in a neighborhood I don't know, 6 months pregnant and devastated. He was DMing over 20 different women, telling them how beautiful they were, etc. I found saved snaps where he exchanged addresses with some girl, as well as sending her a video of himself masturbating and bunch of other pics of him shirtless post yoga bod for you, etc. Text attached. There was a thread with another girl on Snap of them taking photos together at a bar with a bunch of heart emojis over the pic. They weren't kissing or anything and I didn't see sexual stuff or addresses exchanged here, but it still made me question if this was just another chick he was hooking up with while I was pregnant and alone trying to prepare for our daughter across the country. He drove back to his barracks to remotely wipe his phone while I was still finding more evidence of his infidelity. Obviously, I was devastated and upset, but he'd been pulling away for a while before this happened, so I'd had my suspicions up to that point, and I had already really been struggling emotionally dealing with that. Not to mention, I already have a PTSD diagnosis from long-term abuse, which I'm not getting into the details of. But as soon as we got married, he told me I had to give him details about the abuse I went through because I was his wife now. I joked that if that was the case, then we could get a divorce. Over some months, he wouldn't let this go and would interrogate me about details until he was screaming and I was crying. At this point, I was already in my 2nd trimester with my daughter, and I caved and gave him some details, hoping that would be the end of it. It was not. If any of you are familiar with CPTSD, forcing someone to disclose details against their will can set your recovery back a ton. So I started having nightmares again, migraines, intense anxiety, etc. One got so bad that I had to go to the ER, because I was throwing up and urinating on myself from the pain of the migraine. I don't have any family nearby or parents really, source of me PTSD, so I called the next person who I felt safe with to take me to the ER, and that happened to be my ex of 4 years. Husband knows about this friendship and was uncomfortable with it at first, but seemed to get over it when I explained that our relationship was basically sexless and we parted amicably because I wanted kids, and he'd had 3 already with tubes tied. He and his family kind of adopted me because of the situation with my family, plus I help him raise 2 teenagers. His oldest was in college out of state by this point. Fast forward again, my daughter is 9 months old. In a couple days our final divorce hearing is this Friday. He lost legal custody in the last hearing. He didn't show up, but his lawyer did, and he got a liberal step-up plan for visitation. He's now stationed in CT, and I'm in CA, so it's going to be tough to exercise visitation. I went through periods of intense anger towards him, and I told him he couldn't see his daughter without a court order, although I took that back and invited him to visit for her first Christmas, so he hasn't been back to see her since she was born. I should also mention that he told me the Navy was requiring a paternity test for our daughter since we weren't going to be together anymore. He told me this less than 48 hours after I gave birth. I went into an emotional tailspin after he told me that. The nurses almost wanted to keep me in postpartum recovery for an extra day. I sent an angry email regarding the matter to his chief and told husband to stay away from us until he got his paternity results. He kept messaging and telling me that he was in CA to visit her. He had taken paternity leave to visit her, and he was 99.9% sure she was his, but he just wanted to be sure. I started feeling guilty because I know without a doubt that he's her father, so I let him visit. Things were going well until my daughter was 11 days old, and he decided to go out partying with his friends in town because they wanted to celebrate him becoming a father. I wouldn't have known about it, but I tried to call/text him to say goodnight to baby, since he was staying at a friend's and not with us at night, and he took about 3 hours to respond. I was pissed. I had already felt abandoned, not just me but also our daughter, and he had the audacity to go out partying to celebrate becoming a father when he wasn't even going to be there to help us. Anyway, I gave him a little hell for it, and he came back to visit a couple days later. Before he came, I told him no more showering at my place or taking care of personal hygiene. He was doing this before. If he's coming over, he's there to help and spend time with baby, and that's it. Well, he was giving me attitude and complaining when he came over, so I asked him why he thought everything would be honky-dory after what he put me through, the lies, the cheating, the verbal/emotional abuse. He got defensive and started telling me my family told him I'd be an unfit mother. He kept repeating it when he saw how upset it made me with my daughter still on my chest from breastfeeding. I had a pelvic problem during the latter half of my pregnancy and was still having difficulty walking or getting up from a seated or laying position. My helplessness infuriated me even more. I told him to get out of my house, so after having to repeat several times and raise my voice, he left, but also forgot his wallet, which I didn't realize at the time. I blocked him on my phone immediately after he left, so he had his friends call and text me about it, which also upset me further. I told them to fuck off, and if he came back to the house I'd be calling the police on him, I didn't need the man that abandoned and cheated on me pregnant, causing me further stress with my newborn. I needed tranquility and peace. I figured I'd go drop his wallet off at the base later. He didn't need or deserve an explanation from me. So I went to my appointment that day, which he knew about, and drove to drop it off at the base after. I get home and my roommate informs me that husband sent police to my house to pick up the wallet and claimed that I pretended to not be home. Later on that day, I get a call from CPS claiming general neglect of my newborn infant, less than 2 weeks old. CPS opens a case on me. I was again devastated. Nothing ended up happening, and a lawyer advised me not to allow them access to my home without a court order, but it was awful just to have to talk to them about this, and to be accused of neglecting my baby that I dedicated every waking, and barely sleeping, moment to. Needless to say, I haven't been thrilled about the prospect of co-parenting with this guy, but he's guilt-tripping me for not doing video calls, sending photos, etc., and telling him he couldn't visit for Thanksgiving, even though I told him he could visit her for her first Christmas and I offered to help him finance the trip. He decided to take his limited resources and leave days to vacation with his friends and family for 2 weeks in FL and blamed me for not wanting to come until he gets a court order. I don't know what to do. I don't trust him alone with the baby. Doing calls and sending pics feels so forced and is bad for me emotionally. I've tried it. I want to stop being snarky with him, but I'm still so mad, and the fact that he hasn't really apologized for everything he put me through has me on edge. There's so much more to the story, but I think this post has gone on long enough for now.